If you love motorsport, you should know Ann Bradshaw. Having worked at the Open Rally Championship and British Touring Cars, as well as Autosport, A1GP, and more recently W Series, Ann has had a plethora of experience working in motorsport, but she's most well known for her over 10-year stint working in F1 as one of the very first press officers. Having worked with drivers like Hill, Piquet, Mansell, and Senna, I jumped at the opportunity to be able to interview her and highlight her for Women in Motorsport Month. If you like this video and you like this interview, please consider liking it and subscribing to our channel. We want to say thank you to all of the new subscribers recently, and I hope you enjoy the video. Welcome, first of all, to the CCF1 channel. We're delighted to have you, and I'll just start things off really simple and easy by saying, how are you doing?
I'm fine. It's a pleasure to join you in one of my favourite cities in the world, Montreal. Just love it. So, yeah, I'm fine. It's a strange world we're in, but no, everything's going well, and yeah, getting back motor racing and doing things like that we love.
I was going to say, you just got back from Turkey, so how has it been this season so far with all of these restrictions and obviously having to navigate a little bit of a different season?
Yeah, I mean, it's been odd because obviously people who you've known, like with me, for the last 50 years, I have to stand two meters away from them and talk to them with mask on. So it's a strange way of going about it. But like anything, you get used to it. We're going motor racing. We're keeping the fans happy. We're making sure the teams are out there doing what they do. So yeah, it's a small price to pay to continue to do what we love doing and what a lot of people love us doing, and also keeping everybody safe as we're doing it.
And obviously, with your extensive experience in the motorsport world, you've seen so many changes over the years, especially with social media kind of coming at the forefront and being a main player in how audiences nowadays get to access F1 content. So for you, how has that introduction of social media affected your job in PR over the years?
Today, it's a lifesaver because fans can't go to races, but they can see everything that's going on. Over the years, yeah, it's been quite a sea change to me. When I started, we didn't even have computers. We did everything by a thing called a telex, and they hadn't even started having fax machines and these sort of things. But yeah, I mean, everything changes, and you have to go with the flow. It's brought us into a different world, different fans. We've still got what I call the old school. People can pick up a newspaper, pick up a magazine, sit and watch the TV. But the great thing is that youngsters who don't want to do that can look at their tablet, their iPhone, whatever they're doing, however they're finding out what's going on, and get into what we're doing without having to sit there for hours on end and perhaps not enjoying it. So I think it's important. It's great. We're able to link in with those people. They're able to link in with us. I mean, in the old days, you never knew what they thought about you because they bought the magazine or the newspaper, and if one was annoyed with you or thought you were wonderful, they'd write you a letter. So a week later, a letter would arrive. Now, social media, they're on your Twitter account, they're on your Instagram account, they're on your Facebook. So we have the opportunity to not only give them something we think is lovely, but actually tailor it to what they like. And I think that's great because if you can keep your audience happy by giving them what they want, well, you can't ask for anything better than that.
Is there anything about the more old school, as you say, style of working that you miss? I'm thinking specifically when you were on Aurélie's podcast, Racing Lives, and you were making mention of how being a competitive person and being in a very competitive sport, you loved the thrill of going and handing out press releases one by one to all of the journalists at the table. Like, is there anything in terms of that aspect that you find has been removed by this digital era?
Yeah, because you don't talk to people. You don't have to go and find them. I mean, you don't have to go into a media centre. I mean, obviously at the moment, the media poor guys can't get to us because they're locked away. They're not allowed in the paddock. But you do miss that. In a funny sort of way, we had such a more of a friendship with the journalists because we'd talk to them. And in fact, to be honest with you, we'd go out for the dinner with them. But now, you're not there standing having a chatter to see what's going on. You're sending the stuff through. They're dealing with it, and they're too busy because they're not just writing one story that's going to arrive, sort of in a paper the next day. they've got to be right on it, because whatever happens within seconds, not even minutes, it's got to be up on their social media channels. It's got to be on the, the online account of whatever newspaper they're working for. So they haven't got the time, because they're always playing catch up. They can't just do a story and that's it, and then a story the next day, because whatever evolves, they've got to be there, and they can't afford to miss the next installment.
So I would say, kind of going off that then, and having that close interpersonal relationship with the journalists, were there ever moments where you kind of had to deal with a difficult personality, or how do you manage in a very male-dominated sport where sometimes the egos, both from drivers, team members, and journalists alike, can kind of become a little bit overbearing?
Yeah, I mean, I have had frank and meaningful conversations with journalists who have written things that we personally feel was representing us in the wrong way, or a driver took a dislike to it. I mean, it's different, because obviously I had some drivers just say, oh, let them write what they want. Other drivers take it personally. Now, say that it's just, if you go and have a word with them, you most likely end up with them putting you on Twitter saying, oh, the PR person came and told me off. Where if they're just writing a newspaper column, they've not got room to start writing those sort of things.
And what would you say has been an aspect of, yourself as a woman in motorsport, and you were one of the very first press officers essentially paving the way? It's still obviously mostly men working in F1, but there's a much stronger female presence. And I think of people like Aurélie and Charlotte over at McLaren. You got Helen, who runs pretty much a brilliant job doing social media. It seems like it's very much a community, and all the women there take care of each other. So what was it like essentially being one of the very first and kind of paving that way for more people to follow in your footsteps?
It was fine. I mean, my first year as a press officer was 85. And as you say, there was myself. That was sort of, there was about a couple of us, a guy at Lotus, Tony, who I worked alongside as an agency, and myself at Williams. It was strange, because obviously by then I'd been working in the sport a long time, because I started in 71. And I have to put my hand up and say I have never had a problem with being a female in a male-oriented sport. But perhaps it's different, because what I am doing is very much more a female role, because as you're mentioning Aurélie and Helen and Charlotte, and if you look down the pit lane, you've got Sylvia and Britta and Mia, and you've got in fact, I think if we turned around and worked it out, we would outnumber the men in the job we do. Over the years, it has been a female oriented thing, because there's no reason that it shouldn't be men, but it seems to have gone that way. And I think if I was talking and I was an engineer or something like that, it might be more difficult, because of perception that a woman, a woman's place, you're running the hospitality, you're running marketing, you're running the communications, but you wouldn't be out there doing the strategy or changing tires or working out, sort of gear ratios and that sort of thing. So it's I think I was lucky in the area I was in, but having said that, still I've never had a problem. I've never personally thought that somebody's looked at me. Now, having said that, no one's ever looked at me and said, oh, you're a woman, except in a country where women are not accepted. First few times I went to Japan, working there, and I'd go to meetings with a male colleague, and if I'd ask a question, the Japanese would not answer to me. They'd look past me and give the answer to my male colleague. And Japan was the first place I ever came across that. But that was their culture then. Completely different now. Not at all like that now. So it's more of a cultural thing than anything else.
Well, it's brilliant to see the progress that's been made and how things have changed, because I was recently talking about how when I was media staff at the most recent Canadian Grand Prix, I kind of had issues with certain journalists where they would come up and ask questions, but they would always direct it to my male colleague instead of myself. And that would get a little bit frustrating, but to know that in a more professional experience that it's not as big of an issue as a lot of us outsiders might believe it might be.
Some men would go in and they'll think, oh, well, I'll ask the man because he'll know better than a woman. And there are people like that. There are what I call dinosaurs in this world. But I've been very lucky not to come across those, and any who have treated me like that, I have to say I've dealt with them pretty rapidly.
And I'm sure, having dealt with Williams for so long and having a roster of drivers that all had very particular personalities over the years, what would you say were some of the main differences between working specifically for the team as a whole versus when you shifted more to freelance and working with specific drivers at a time?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, when you're working with a driver, whether you're working with a team or actually for that driver, it's very different. I mean, to me, I always say that if you're working with a team or with a driver and you work in specifics, it is the same, because you have to look after that driver and only think about what they want from their point of view. Where I've also obviously worked in championships, and then that's a very different situation. If you're working for an overall championship and you've got 20 drivers there, then you have to come at it from a different angle. And I've worked with, obviously, I'm still the press officer for W Series, so I've had 20 female drivers to deal with. I've worked in the past with Formula BMW. I've worked also with A1GP. So they're the big differences. I mean, I was a journalist in my former years with the Autosport, but it's a different way, because if you're fighting the corner for a driver, but then you're actually representing 20 drivers, so you're always going to have a winner, but you're not so personally involved with any of them that you're then feeling bad for those who you don't have to deal with it on quite such a personal level, because you're dealing with it as a championship, and that's a different concept.
And I'm assuming there's a little bit of a difference in how you would approach the job versus a bad weekend or a good weekend, regardless of which championship it is, which driver. There's always a tone that comes with it of how to address it, and not necessarily spin it, but at least release a story that is still uplifting in the end.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult if you're always last on the grid. How are you going to spin that? And obviously, if it's a championship, you're writing for release about that, you've got 3 happy people and perhaps 17 unhappy people. But yeah, there's always you always have to find the positive, unless there's been accidents or anything like that, which you obviously can't find a positive in. If it's just, oh well, they had a bad weekend, they didn't quite, they weren't quite on the ball, then yeah, it's a different matter. So that's okay.
So I want to also touch on W Series, as you mentioned, because I am personally extremely excited to see that they're going to be joining alongside the F1 calendar as a support series. So I just want to know, what are your thoughts in terms of this news? What most excites you about W Series, and just kind of give us a little bit of insight in what you've been doing for them.
I just think it's the best thing. I think a lot of us, and I put my hand up when we saw a female-only series, well, do we really need this? But then as I looked into it, I thought, yeah, we do need this, because we're going to give these females possibilities that they wouldn't have had, because they didn't have the money or the opportunities. I just think it's great that we're giving them a chance to shine, to show what they can do. I know that they're not up against men in the W Series, but we want this to be a springboard for them to be up against men, which has happened. I love the camaraderie. It's a great, I personally think how it's been done with, you have 20 cars, but you swap the cars around. So nobody gets if there is one car is I won't say a bad one, but not quite as good as the others, you've not got it for all 8 races. All the females do everything together. They train together, they eat together, they change together. There's never an opportunity for any of them to go off and distance themselves from the rest of it. And also, yeah, as I say, the great thing is they're learning different engineers, different mechanics, different cars. So they're not just getting in the comfort zone. Oh, I've got the best car, off away. I like those extra challenges, but also the way it has been planned just makes them more of a team. Even though they want to get in those cars, they're all for themselves, but out of the cars. And it's a really lovely thing to actually know that they're all there for each other. But once they're in the car, then they're racing drivers. But out of the cars, they're human beings and people who help each other.
And do you think that this might help shift a little bit of F1's audience now that they're joining on? You know, when I go to the track, you see a lot of men in the audience, but I find over the years we're starting to see more women getting interested. So I'm really hoping at least that having W Series there could encourage more women to either become fans of motorsport in general or even encourage young girls that this could be a viable, you know, sporting or career option for them down the road.
You would have loved being at the races we were, with these young people coming along, these youngsters coming along with parents. I mean, it was just uplifting because we'd get a family come along and you'd see that perhaps the girl would be 10 or 12 and some of them had got some karting experience, some of them hadn't, but they were so inspired by these 20 women. And it was lovely. I mean, obviously Brands Hatch home race for Jamie Chadwick and that, but it was lovely because there we were with the DTM, obviously a very important championship. But when our cars all went out from the paddock down to the racetrack, everybody clapped, and there were men, women, kids, everybody clapped and cheered them. And I've never seen anybody do that before. There was such a love for what they were doing. I was really amazed, and also the publicity we were able to get, the stories written, the people who have embraced us, and all around the world, radio, TV, written media, just amazing that people saw it for what it was, which is a unique opportunity to give people who, as I say, who otherwise wouldn't be able to show what they were capable of.
And having this positive female representation, I find, is so helpful for anyone across the board, because one thing that I've realized, both in terms of my career path and then just speaking through friends or other people wanting to get into the motorsport industry, is that a lot of us suffer with imposter syndrome, where we just automatically assume, like, am I really qualified to be here? Am I good enough for this? But when you have that representation in front of you and you're seeing someone else succeed, be accomplished, it really helps motivate and give other people confidence that they can do the same.
All across our sport, people should remember that nothing's impossible. I mean, we have to be honest and say that in the UK, we're very, very proud at the moment to have Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion. And I think everybody was just so delighted when, on his slowing down lap, he was saying to all those kids who doubted themselves, who people who, because they were from a minority group or anything, oh no, you can't do that, go away. Believe in yourself and just do it. And I think we have a lot of people in the sport who now really want to get everybody, make it diverse, and make everybody feel that it's not it's awful to say it, but it's not a rich man's sport, not a white rich man's sport. It's a sport for males, females, whatever colour you are, wherever you come from, whatever your religion, your creed, whatever you believe in, that's what it is, a sport for all. Well, we race as one, which is obviously the hashtag for F1.
I think that perfectly rounds it off to, I guess, my final question would be, what would you say to all of the young women aspiring to work in motorsport? What advice would you give them?
Well, for a start, don't let anybody tell you that if you're female, don't let anybody tell you it's a male-dominated sport. And if you're male, don't let anybody say, oh no, you're not good enough. It's a sport that has so many different aspects. You might want to be an engineer, you might want to be in marketing, you might want to be an organizer. There are so many ways that you can find of getting in, and just believe in it. And you look at motorsport, it's not just Formula One, W Series, there's so many championships around and so many different teams that you can become involved in, and just go in and don't be frightened, don't stand back, just say, right, I think I'm the person you need. And yeah, you just have to sometimes be just persistent, and I think that's the best thing. And if you can be that, do your homework, make sure you know exactly what you want, and be open to any suggestions, any ideas. I mean, over the years, I think I've done everything. I've even when we've gone to with a team to races or tests, and we haven't had hospitality, I've made the sandwiches and done the washing up thing. But just be ready to go in there, get your hands dirty, and do anything to make it all happen.
I want to say a big thank you to Ann once again for agreeing to this interview, and I want to thank the viewers for watching. For more content on Women in Motorsport Month, check out the hashtag on Twitter, as well as this video from the F-Series girls over on the Purple Sector's channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!